Hello Tech Geeks, this is Jason2K and today I'll be showing you how to build a gaming PC to beat the Xbox One and PS4. Now, before we begin on picking out our components for this setup, I just want to say that we will be looking at both console specification before picking out our components so that we can compare which is better and which is not better, or if that makes sense. Anyways, yeah, and also I'll be looking at two versions of, or let's just say, yeah, um, two companies for the components, and this would be Intel and AMD. So yeah, so it'll be like a, let's just say, double component picking kind of system, or that's what you can call it. Okay, so anyways, we will be beginning on looking at the specifications of the Xbox One and PS4. So here we can see that the Xbox One has an 8-core processor. The GPU is a D3D 11.1 chip, 32 MB memory, which is an AMD GPU, if I'm correct. And the RAM is an 8GB DDR3. Hard disk is 500GB, non-replaceable. Optical drive is Blu-ray and DVD. I/O is a USB 3.0. For communication, it has Ethernet, 3 radios, and Wi-Fi. For the AV output, it's HDMI only. And for the PS4, you can see that it has the x86-64 AMD Jaguar 8 cores processor. And for the GPU, I know it says AMD, but I know that they're using a HD 7850 modded version of it's modded, or let's just say custom made. It doesn't say here, but if you want to know more, I'll put a link in the description below, so do not worry about that till later. Okay, moving on. The RAM is 8GB of DDR5. It is 500 gigs. Hard disk, optical drive is Blu-ray and DVD. I/O is a USB 3.0. For communication, it has Ethernet, IEEE 02.11, and Bluetooth 2.1. For the AV output, it is a HDMI, analog AV, and digital output. Now, since we've covered up both specifications on the Xbox One PS4, we'll be looking at the components. And first component that I'll be looking at is the case. And the part that I've chosen for the case, or the case that I've chosen, is the Aerocool V3X Black Edition Midi-Tower. It's a decent case for a gaming PC with a good price, and if you want to change the color, then you can. It's up to you guys. But if you just want to stick to the Black Edition, then just stick to it. Okay, next is the CPU. And the CPU we're looking at for Intel is the Pentium G3240. It has 2 cores, 2 threads, and a frequency of 3.10 gigahertz. Now I know that it's not as good as the Xbox One and PS4's processor, but it'll do for gaming. You don't really need as much power for gaming if it's CPU processor. If it's a CPU, sorry. It's basically the memory and the GPU that would take up on all the gaming performance. Okay, so moving on. For AMD, I have picked the A6 6400K, and this can be overclocked, and it has 2 cores, also a turbo speed of 4.10 gigahertz, and that's already decent. That's well, since it's overclockable, you probably might be able to get an extra performance boost rather than the Intel Pentium G340 for a low price, but it's up to you which one is suitable for you. I'm just here suggesting which is the best components to be picking right now, and you can upgrade later. So next is the motherboards, and for Intel I've picked the Asus H81 Plus 80X. Now this supports 2 superfast 3.0 USB ports. It provides GPU performance boost and Turbo Boost technology 2.0. Oh, And a reminder, guys, that this motherboard only supports VGA, so I recommend you buying an adapter if you want to use HDMI. But if you're looking for a motherboard that already supports HDMI, then I suggest you looking for a motherboard that does support HDMI. I only picked this motherboard because it's low price and also gives good performance to the GPU and processor at the same time. But downfall, there's no HDMI and you need to buy an adapter. So hopefully you understand. And next we will be looking at the AMD motherboard. It will be the ASRock FM2A 88X Pro 3 Plus. Now this supports Crossfire X, which means that you can either add an extra GPU or you can add multiple monitors. You know what I mean. Anyways, it has a dual link DVI-D with a maximum resolution of 2560 by 1600. So yeah, that's good, because if you want to play higher than 1080p, then this is the motherboard for you. And it also supports AMD Steady Video 2.0. Okay, so next we'll be looking at the power supply, and for the power supply I picked the Corsair Builder Series CX 500 watts. For the meantime, we will be just sticking with 500 watts. You don't really need to upgrade to a higher PSU unless it is needed, because you can tell temperature analysis from the computer, and if you're using something like high specs PC components such as like an i7 or 2 GPUs or more hard disks, then you can upgrade in the future. But for now, we're sticking with 500 watts, and this gives you less heat generation and 120 milliliter fan spins, which gives you excellent airflow. Okay, so next we'll be looking at the memory. The memory that I've picked is the Corsair Value 8GB RAM. Now this has a speed of 1333 megahertz, and I picked the 8GB RAM because games these days need more memory for high intense graphics, such as settings for DSR, DirectX 12, and playing in 4K. And if you want to upgrade to 16 gigs, then you can do that in the future, but for now, 8 GB. Okay, next we'll be looking at the hard drives, and for the hard drives we'll be looking at the Toshiba 500GB SATA, which the Xbox One PS4 might be using, since they have 500GB as well. But if you want more memory, then feel free to upgrade to higher memory, and yeah, this will give you enough space for programs and games for the meantime. Okay, so the last component that we'll be looking at in this video would be the graphics card, which everyone's excited to find out. So first of all, for Nvidia, I have picked the Gigabyte Geforce GTX 750, and I also have this right now on my PC. I'm currently using a 770, but before I was using a 750 for my benchmark or testing or whatever you call it. Yeah, and if you want to look at a sample of that, I will be putting a link in the description below. Okay, so the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 750 has a core clock of 1059 MHz and a core boost of 1137 MHz. And this video card may not be the best out there, but it will bring you good performance on some games to be played at high settings in 1080p. And normally you wouldn't really want to go up higher unless you have let's just say a 4K monitor or a better GPU. But for the meantime, if you're still happy with 1080p gaming, then yeah, then the GeForce GTX 750 is the card for you. And last but not least, AMD. And for AMD, I have picked Sapphire Radeon R9270, and this has a core clock of 920 MHz and a core boost of 945 MHz. This video card is good for playing games at high res with low power consumption. So if you're cranking up the settings too high, or well, not to the max, but anyways, either way, you will still save power consumption, which means that your GPU will not heat up, your components will not heat up, it won't, then you won't have any issues on playbacks or anything like that in the game. So if you want more, if you want to power save, then the AMD is better for you. But if you want more performance, then I go with the Gigabyte Geforce GTX 750. So that leads to the close on this video. I hope that you liked my opinions. If not, please leave comments below, and remember guys, you can change components either way. So if you don't like what I like, if you don't like the things I've suggested to you, you can still change it, but the components I've picked up for you are similar to the specs of the Xbox One and PS4. Actually, you're probably a bit better than the PS4 and Xbox One, since you have all these components gambled up together and forming a gaming PC and so what. But the purpose of this video is to try and beat the Xbox One and PS4. So this is specs that I can only give you. But if you want me to make another video on how to make a PC that would be like how do I say this? That would be high performance, and at the same time it's cheap, probably at a bit, not as much as the PS4 and Xbox One's price point, but yeah, I'll try and make a video on the next one. So please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.